BMW's improved 3 Series gives its rivals an extremely tough time through the sheer potency and efficiency of what's in its engine bay. Other compact executive models may have the edge in terms of style and feel-good factor, but right across the range, the engineering of the 3 Series stands out. Annoyingly, for those who would pinch its crown, the car is as good on the tarmac as it is on paper. The E90 4th generation BMW 3 Series was forced to redefine its place in the Munich makers model lineup. Now, at its launch in 2005, it was designed for the first time to be no longer the entry-level model for the Mark's cars. The brand's range now being designed around enabling buyers of the smaller 1 Series to migrate to a 3 on their way to bigger BMWs. However, for BMW, this car still remains the cash cow and the goose that laid the golden egg all merged into one. Now, the picture that conjures up may be as powerful an argument against genetic engineering as you'll find, but the reality of the BMW 3 is of one seriously slick, compact executive product ruthlessly targeted at its core market. Of course, arch rivals Audi and Mercedes will say the same of their more recently introduced A4 and C-Class models, hence the mid-term facelift visited upon the 3 Series that we're looking at here. BMW's design philosophy is based around rear-wheel drive, which enables its cars to stand out from the crowd. Now, super efficient traction and stability controls keep those rear wheels in check, so that if you're not a driving enthusiast, then you'll notice no difference. If you are, then the feeling of the rear wheels pushing you around a corner as you exit a bend never fails to offer up a feeling of pleasure. Now, in the face of tough competition, the 3 Series remains the most engaging drive in its class, partly thanks to a track that's been widened by 24mm, enhancing the already polished driving experience. It sits precisely on the road with a beautifully slick 6-speed manual gearbox and steering that's beautifully weighted and very accurate. And of course, it's fast, with even this fleet favourite 320d diesel model that I'm driving here, capable of getting from rest to 60 in 7.9 seconds on the way to a top speed of 142 miles an hour. Better still, there's bundles of torque to waft you up the road, so you don't have to row the thing along with the gear lever. At the wheel, well, it's all very pleasant, well made of course, and interestingly angular, but you don't really get the feeling that you're sitting in something that's this expensive. Rival models feel a little bit more upmarket. Automatic gearboxes are offered even on entry-level diesel variants like the 318D, while coupe convertible models get a very smooth 7-speed semi-automatic double-clutch transmission that pre-selects gears even before you need them. The styling of this particular 3 has been updated in a number of small but subtle ways. Probably the most noticeable are the twin lions that now come down the centre of the bonnet. Elsewhere, the BMW trademarked ringed side lights are standard. The front grille has been tweaked. There's a more noticeable crease line along the side skirts, and the rear light clusters are now completely ruby red in colour. Now, with this car, I've opted to do without BMW's iDrive control interface. That's a silver wheel that normally sits behind the gear stick here, controlling some of the user functions that would otherwise require buttons scattered far and wide across the dash. Now, I've never been a particular fan of the system, but the Germans have continually improved it, the latest version featuring scrolling menu displays for enhanced usability, and the ability to have up to 8 gigabytes of storage capacity for your music. That's enough for up to 100 albums. This 3 Series does a good job of accommodating adult passengers in its rear seats. There's plenty of legroom available even for 6-footers, though headroom may be a slight issue. As far as boot space is concerned, there's 420 litres with all the seats in place if you opt for the saloon and if you opt for the touring estate. Go for the estate and you'll be able to fold down the back seats to increase luggage capacity to 1,385 litres. Most 3 Series models sit in the £20,000 to £35,000 bracket, Now that's a little bit more than an equivalent Audi A4 and a lot less than a comparable Mercedes C-Class, although there's not a huge amount in it between the three models these days, and not a lot else worth considering if you're looking for the very best in the compact executive sector. We're looking here at saloon and touring models, but buyers can also opt for the slick coupe body style and the pretty 3 Series convertible with its folding metal roof. Now the 3 Series is of course available with a huge range of engines, and there's not a duffer amongst them. The core petrol models open with the 143 brake horsepower 318i and 170 brake horsepower 320i 4-cylinder variants before moving into 6-cylinder territory with the 218 brake horsepower 325i and the rapid 272 brake horsepower 330i that sits just below the 306 brake horsepower 335i with its award-winning twin turbocharged engine. Now above all of those sits a 4-litre V8 with 420 brake horsepower that's used in the fire-breathing M3. The diesel range mirrors the petrol one, the entry-level version being the 143 brake horsepower 318D that sits just below the 177 brake horsepower 320D that we're looking at here. If you want more, well, there's 197 brake horsepower in the 325D, 245 brake horsepower in the 330D, and 286 brake horsepower in the top-of-the-range 335D. As for equipment, well, even entry-level models feature ESP stability control, manual air conditioning, CD stereo with MP3 input, and alloy wheels. All 3 Series models get 6 airbags, and you get ISOFIX child seat mountings in the front and rear. You also get clever active head restraints, which work with occupants in the event of a rear-end collision by moving forward 60mm to lessen the likelihood of whiplash injuries in the event of such a crash. Thanks to its efficient dynamics program, BMW continues to lead the way in terms of emissions and fuel economy figures in the compact executive class, and in the current economic climate, that's a highly lucrative position to be in. Now the results can save buyers a pretty penny in terms of fuel and emission-based taxation. The 318D leads the way in this respect, with 60.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and emissions of 123 grams per kilometre of CO2. But this 320D that I'm driving is only just behind, with a combined fuel economy figure of 58.9 miles to the gallon and emissions of 128 grams per kilometre of CO2. Even the petrol engines are doing their bit. The 330i, for example, manages 39.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 173 grams per kilometre of CO2. As with most quality compact executive cars, once you've paid the initial purchase price for a 3 Series, then pence per mile running costs aren't huge. Now that needs to be weighed against the fact that you'll be getting less engine probably than if you'd opted for a less prestigious badge. So with 143 brake horsepower 318i entry-level 3 Series, for example, for that kind of money, you could also get 200 PS in an equivalent Ford or Vauxhall. You pays your money and takes your choice. This car continues to play to its maker's core strengths of performance, efficiency, and driving dynamics. And what strengths they are. Now, with this model, BMW has the unenviable task of trying to cement the position of its compact executive stalwart at the head of its market sector in the face of massive competition from new arrivals. Has it succeeded? Well, perhaps some of the 3 Series design leaves room for improvement, but it's seriously tough to fault the engineering contained within this car. Now, in a market where cost, performance, economy and emission figures are routinely analysed to the nth degree by fleet buyers seeking to make the most rewarding and financially prudent choice, the figures of this car continue to stand up better than those of anything else. That's the bottom line.